This episode of the No Huddle Show is being brought to you by Chevrolet Cadillac of Turnersville, a Penske automotive dealer. Visit today at the Route 42 location in Turnersville, New Jersey, or online at ChevroletofTurnersville.com and CadillacofTurnersville.com. What's going on, everybody? Zack Rosenblatt here with Mike Kaye at Nova Care Complex in Philadelphia, recording the latest episode of the No Huddle Show. Our preview episode for Sunday's game against the Cowboys. It's a big one.
Yeah, some would say.
It's a little important.
Yeah, and it's one that I think you and I have kind of had circled on the calendar all year, whether it was because of this record or not. This is the one that's going to decide most of the marbles.
Yeah, I mean, they win, they're tied for first place. They would have the tiebreaker, I believe, in the division. If they lose, all of a sudden they would have to pretty much win out in order to win the division, and the Cowboys would have to lose out like that because they wouldn't have the tiebreak anymore, and it would make it a little more difficult to win the wild card, though not impossible, because some of those, like the Vikings are playing the Seahawks this week, and the Seahawks are also competing for a wild card, so if the Vikings won, that'd probably be better. I don't know.
It'd be
better. You want the Seattle. Yeah, you want Seattle. Seattle's probably going to get that first wild card spot. Yeah. And then the Panthers have been reeling, so, I mean...
And then Tampa's kind of like...
And Tampa's kind of like looming, and they have that's the thing. Those three teams all have the tiebreaker over the Eagles.
Now, what's positive about that is, let's say they do lose in Dallas. If they win out those last three, which is going to be very, very hard to do, they do have a really good shot at that wild card spot because Seattle, like we said, is probably going to get the fifth seed. But... the Vikings' schedule is very, very tough. They're going to face Seattle, like you said, then they're going to face an angry Packers team that's got something to prove. Joe Philbin's going to want to try to audition for that job, even though he's not.
And Rodgers probably be like, "Yo, McCarthy was the problem, not me."
Right, exactly. Yeah. And then you look at the Panthers. They play the Saints twice down that stretch, and I believe they also play Tampa. So those two, they can eat each other alive. And the Saints are going to play into Week 17 because they want that first spot in the NFC. They want the playoffs to go through them.
And the Rams will be right there, so it's not like they probably won't be able to rest everybody Week 17.
Exactly, that's my point. So they're going to be competitive throughout.
So the only team the Eagles are going against that would even affect the wild card part is the Redskins, who probably are going to be tanking. Not tanking, but they're going to be falling apart the rest of the way.
Right. They signed Josh Johnson to be the backup for Mark Sanchez. He hasn't thrown a pass since 2011.
Wow, I didn't even realize that. That's crazy.
Yeah, I looked last night. But he has been in the league every single year.
Hey,
he's just been
I saw he's about to play for that new football league San Diego team, and one of the reports was he's still going to play for them. He's still planning on playing for them.
Hey,
he's like, hey, the NFL's not going to work. I'm just going to go back to.
I'm just a 4-game
I like San Diego. I do too.
I think he went to San Diego State. So that makes
sense. Okay.
All
right.
But anyway,
you don't want to make this a Josh Johnson podcast?
We can. Which Josh Johnson? There's 4 of them.
True.
But yeah, so. Let's say they do win this Cowboys game. Here's why this Cowboys game is important for their playoff hopes, just in general. Winning this Cowboys game gives them an opportunity to lose down the stretch and still have a shot at the playoffs. Remember, the Cowboys still play the Colts. They're going to be a very competitive team. They're trying to win the AFC South or get into the wild card, which they are in position to do. They're coming off a really bad loss to the Jaguars, but over the next couple of weeks, maybe you see them bounce back. That's probably the Cowboys' best shot at losing a game after this Eagles game. So, if the Colts and Frank Reich do the Eagles a favor, and the Eagles win this week, then they have the opportunity to kind of just go with the flow, and let's say they lose to the Rams, whatever. Let's say they beat the Rams, they lose to the Texans, it's not that big of an issue. They've got to keep winning. They have to go at least 3-1 in this 4-game stretch, but wins against the Cowboys and the Redskins are the premium wins you want to have.
And I think if you're, I know this is thinking a little too far ahead maybe, but if you're making the playoffs, you want to be, as a division winner, you want to be able to have a home game, because the Eagles, they did lose a couple home games this year, but they're better when they're at home than when they're on the road, and this is a team built better to play at home, I think, and they would. I mean, if they were a wild card team as of now, they would play Chicago. I mean, that's a tough environment. I mean, it's a cold weather. They're used to that. So, but I mean, that's a tough team to go against.
Well, and it's a terrible place to kick. It's a terrible place to punt.
Exactly. The point being,
miserable.
if the goal is to win the Super Bowl again, which it obviously should be, the best path to that is winning the division. And if they don't win on Sunday, they're probably not going to. Unless, crazy things happened last year. Like, crazier things have happened. You know, the Phillies that one year, they made the playoffs because the Mets lost, every game in October. So, it could happen, but the Cowboys haven't shown signs of slowing down, and the Eagles haven't proven capable of winning that many games in a row. So if they don't win on Sunday, they're in trouble. This is the big. We've said it a billion times, but as of right now, this is the biggest game of the season.
It is. But they do need to close out. They still do need to beat Washington later in the season.
Yeah. Well, I think, like you said, though, this one.
This is a week-to-week playoff for them. Right?
Yeah, but this game in particular sets up the rest of the way. It makes life a lot easier if they win this week. If they lost this week and then went 2-1 the rest of the way, they'll be on the bubble and probably not going to make it because of tiebreakers. So and they're probably not going to go 3-0 the rest of the way. So
right, this is it. This is if you're realistically hoping this team bounces back into a Super Bowl contender, this is the game you want to see them win. You want to see them win by at least 6 points. You want to see them own this game. A win's a win, whatever. But if you're really trying to convince yourself that this team isn't going to be one and done in the playoffs or just barely miss the playoffs, you want to see a convincing win from this Eagles team. So before we get into kind of the matchup and everything, let's talk about the injuries.
Yeah, we can talk about the injuries. Then I want to talk about some comments from one of the players yesterday. I feel like we need to broach that subject.
Right.
But so today, it's a short week, so it kind of makes sense, but also all the players that are out have been out, so I think it's still concerning. So they were missing 5 guys on defense from what we saw in practice today.
On Thursday.
Thursday, yeah. And that includes Jalen Mills, who we didn't think was going to play anyway, Avonte Maddox, who Doug Peterson kind of sounded at least more optimistic. Same with Jordan Hicks. He wasn't there. Timmy Jernigan hurt his back again before the other game, and if he's not practicing this week, I find it hard to believe he'd play on Sunday, considering he only played 20 snaps the week before. And then Michael Bennett, he's a guy that he can rest and play, and I think he did that all of last week. So I wouldn't be too concerned about Bennett. And then Jason Peters didn't look like he was practicing today. He hurt his ankle at the end of last game, but he's also another guy that he misses practice and he's fine. But Josh Adams did practice. He has a shoulder injury, I guess. He must have suffered that against the Redskins, and he practiced.
And he had a hip injury going into the Redskins, but that's gone from the.
I was like, hey, the Eagles need him, so it's good that he's looking good. But these are guys they've been without, so it's like they're used to it, I guess. But it kind of felt like they were going to start to get healthier, and this was the time to do it. And I don't know if concern is the right word, but it's not great that they're still this banged up.
So my take on this is, like you kind of alluded to, Bennett and Peters are in their mid-30s. They're guys that are known for taking days off. It's about getting to Sunday for them.
Yeah, it's different cases.
Right. Bennett's the big one to me. They're going to need a pass rush in this game.
Oh, yeah.
And he has a history against Dallas where he's played pretty well. Between him, Chris Long, and Brandon Graham, they're going to have to hold down the fort and collapse the pocket against Dak Prescott, set the edge. That's a big deal. Jason Peters against DeMarcus Lawrence. Huge. But I'm not worried about Peters. Bennett, I'm a tad concerned, but not really. When you look at the 3 guys that are gone, Jordan Hicks has not played well this season. Or
relative to what we saw when he was fully healthy a couple years ago.
Right. He's not playing.
He's fine. He's just not.
He's not playing 2014, 2015 Jordan Hicks.
He's playing more like a guy who's been injured for 2 straight seasons.
Right. So I think with him, it's not as big of a drop-off. Camus did not play very, very well against the Redskins, but he did play well against the Giants. I think Nigel Bradham's turned into a really versatile player. Nate Gary bounced back from having a terrible game against the Giants to having a pretty good game against the Redskins. I think they'll be fine. It's tough to tackle Ezekiel Elliott no matter
who you are, yeah.
That I'm not worried about. I do think Avonte Maddox would be big in this game just because Amari Cooper can get downfield, and you might need some help for Rasul. You might need some help for Sidney Jones, depending on what happens. We'll talk about the matchups later, obviously, but that could be a big one. And then Jalen Mills, man, I got to tell you, this team misses him in a lot of ways. You talk about giving up big plays, whatever. From a tackling standpoint and from a personality standpoint, I think Jalen Mills brings a lot to this defense. I think he makes up for your lack of good safety play opposite Malcolm Jenkins because of his tackling ability. That's something that concerns me. there's Pro Football Focus doesn't give him a great grade as a tackler, but since he's been out, the tackling has been awful.
Though it wasn't. Besides the one play last week, it was actually pretty good.
Right. They played better.
Yeah,
Jim Schwartz said he didn't even think that they tackled all that well.
Yeah. But I mean, numbers wise, it's better. They gave up 98 rushing. Yeah. Yes.
Whatever.
It's better than they had been in weeks, though. Is the point?
Right, but the 3 weeks before that, Jalen Mills wasn't there.
Yeah. No, exactly. Your point's still correct.
And so I think that he's a guy who brings a lot of toughness to this team. He needs to be back by the final 2 games. Like, I mean, it
seems like that's probably the target right now because whenever Doug says a little bit longer for a guy, it means more than 1 week. Yeah. And they were more optimistic last week, and then it looked like he had a boot on of some sort on the sideline, which he hadn't had on. So I don't know if there was a setback or it was just hurting him. Or I mean, boots don't necessarily always mean bad things, but it doesn't sound I mean, the fact that it started out as they didn't sound like it was going to be long-term at first. I mean, he injured himself during the Jaguars game, which feels like ages ago because it was before the bye week. So if you think about it, he's been out an extra week because he didn't practice that week. So he's missed 5 weeks, 4 games. He's about to miss his 5th game in a row. I'd be pretty surprised if he played against the Rams.
Yeah, I mean, he's halfway to a Sproles, you know what I mean? And from an injury outage standpoint, and we made such a big deal out of that. I saw him in the locker room after the Giants game. I asked to talk to him. He said, I'll get you next week. So it sounded like he was optimistic that he was going to be talking, and then it just, he wasn't available for the Redskins. He's not available this week. I doubt that any of those 3 guys play, but, we'll see what happens tomorrow.
It seems like those are guys that can't afford to skip a whole week of practice and not play.
Right.
Like you were saying, they're not veteran guys.
Right, and so I think you go into this game, you're still a little banged up, but they've gotten used to those 3 not being in the lineup, and I think guys have stepped up. I think Cre'Von LeBlanc is a really good
nice
story.
Pickup.
And Sidney Jones played very well, I felt, against the Redskins. I thought Rasul Douglas played his best game of the season.
He got better as the game went along, yeah.
Yeah, so, you got to feel a little optimistic, and if you see a lot out of Rasul Douglas, Sidney Jones, and Cre'Von LeBlanc in this game, you feel really good about maybe letting Ronald Darby leave in free agency, and then you got Jalen Mills, and you can figure out where you go from there. So I think, as negative as the injuries are, I think this is giving guys the opportunity to build some confidence, as Doug Peterson alluded to a couple of days ago. So I think you got to feel good heading into this matchup. But what I don't feel good about is what you wanted to talk about.
So Grugier-Hill, I think it was on his way out of the locker room because there wasn't any media around him. It was just NBC Sports Philadelphia, I believe. It might have even just been a camera guy. He, I don't know what the question was, but Camus' response was something along the lines of, Dallas always chokes, so we're going to go down there and make them choke again.
Oh,
there's a lot of layers to analyze here. I love rivalries that have trash talk. I would prefer it wasn't coming from Camus' mouth first.
Right, yeah.
That's the thing. Trash talk is fun. This rivalry, that it's made for this. It doesn't happen as much as it should, I think, because that's been removed a little bit because of social media, probably because of what happened with Camus. That thing blew up pretty quickly. There's a few layers. Number one, he's the number 2, number 3 linebacker when everybody's healthy. He's mainly a special teams guy.
That's why I wanted to talk about the injuries first. So this.
And he makes some plays, and he's a leader on this team. He's a captain on special teams, but he also dropped a pick because his hand is hurt. He dropped a clear pick 6 against the Cowboys a couple weeks ago that probably would have turned the game. The Eagles might have won if he turned that because that was early in the game. Mm-hmm. And then the Cowboys scored on the next 2 possessions. I don't know how happy Doug was that he said. I think he was on the radio and he said something along the lines of, "That's not ideal that he said that."
Yeah, it's Camus. I think is one of the more liked players in that locker room, and probably by the fan base even, just because of his story and how.
Yeah, and the way he kicked he kicked the extra point that one year or whatever.
Well, yeah, he kicked it.
He did the kickoff. He did the kickoff. Yeah,
even more impressive in my opinion.
Was that last year?
Yeah, it was last year.
So much stuff happened last year. I feel like that's just forgotten.
Yeah, he.
But yeah, anyway.
So, and he's played relatively well with his defensive snaps. If you watch the game film, he's actually.
He's around the ball a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, he's played really well, and I think. Boy, I don't know. I didn't see a club on either of his hand yesterday as he was entering the locker room. So maybe he was just really excited about not having a club on for once. But yeah, man, that's bad. There are maybe 4 guys in this locker room that you could hear say that, and you're cool with it. It's Malcolm Jenkins. I was trying to think about this last night. Malcolm Jenkins,
Brandon Graham,
Jason Peters, and maybe Zach Ertz.
Or if like Chris Long said it, you'd be fine.
Well, Chris Long
but
can
he
say
wouldn't,
anything.
He wouldn't do that. Yeah. And he'd be like, he's like, also, I just donated $1 million more.
Yeah. Chris Long can say anything.
I'm such a good person. I'm Chris Long. But
man, I hope he doesn't listen to this podcast. He'd be the only one.
Hey, my nephew dressed up as him from my newborn nephew. He's like 4 months old. He dressed up as Chris Long from the Eagles parade for Halloween.
He did look stellar. I will say that.
But yeah, your point. But it's more about like the timing of it. Like if he was the fourth person to say it, as opposed to the first Eagle to talk trash this week. Like that's the thing. Like I don't want to say nobody's gonna take him seriously, but it's gonna get back to Cowboys, and it's almost gonna be like a mock-worthy thing.
Part of me, and I don't mean to hate on our own profession, but like part of me, I mean, we had to cover it. He said it, but like part of me thought that it blew up way more than it should have. He's literally the third linebacker on the team, and he's a special teams captain. That's almost as bad as like Rick Lovato being like, yo, Cowboys, you suck. Like, you know what I mean?
Can we try and get Rick Lovato to say that?
I might actually. He went to Old Dominion. He's very well spoken. But like imagine like Jake Elliott being like, yeah, we're gonna kick them into the sun. You know what I mean? Like it's almost the equivalent of that.
Also, I mean, as we all expected, Carson Wentz just came out at his press conference, just completely talked crap about them. He cursed them out.
Those guys don't believe in God. It's like this whole.
He's
thing.
like, they're pieces of garbage. Now he actually was like, I actually respect. He's like, I'm not going to get into that. I really respect them as a team, and he started complimenting them. It's the complete opposite. I mean, you expect Carson Wentz to do that. Some of us in the media were talking earlier. We're trying to figure out like who would be the most likely to say something like Camus did, and who would be the least likely. I think the most likely we came up with Jason Peters basically did make fun of them. Alshon Jeffrey was in one name. Brandon Graham.
Graham was actually pretty politically correct.
When he does it, he kind of does it by accident. Actually,
right? Yeah.
Who was the other one we said? There's like an obvious one who would talk smack. Who's someone in the locker room who would?
Lane Johnson, maybe.
Yeah, Lane Johnson. Yeah, he's an easy one. And then the guys that wouldn't would include like Carson Wentz, Nick Foles, like
you know who I'd like to
Isaac Samalo because he only says like 4 words.
You know what? Here's the thing: if they end up just trouncing the Cowboys, you know, Camus' like stock's gonna be like up. Maybe that was like the thought process.
Is Golden Tate gonna stand on the star and do the TO thing?
Golden Tate to me is a guy who's like not like weirdly embraced the city, but like.
Well, he's like a guy who wants to have fun though, like,
right?
Like the worm thing he did. Yeah,
he's laid it on thick at being.
He already made fun of Howard Eskin, like.
Yeah, I mean, dude, the
called him banana pudding.
Hey, whoever his PR people are you know. But I mean. You know, it's funny, like, you talk to some guys in the locker room, like, Josh Adams is so, like, unassuming and so humble.
Deflects and, yeah.
Yeah, you know, I do wonder if there's, like, a rookie who would, maybe DeAndre Hall. I mean, he's not a rookie. Yeah. Oh, okay, so we found somebody who would be way worse saying what Camus said. That's kind of like, so when he first got here, he, like, said something to me along the lines of, like, because I asked him, like, what's it like to be... What was like your first day? Like what's like? He's like, this is like, it's nice to be around a winning culture for once, or whatever his quote was. And Bears fans were mad at the time, and then as the Eagles like fell to 4-6, I got quote tweeted and retweeted like so much. Just people were adding him, like going at him for saying something like that. And so I wonder if he's going to quiet down now because of that. But I mean,
it's just funny how it's just funny, like because the internet, like nothing you say ever goes away. Like
that's going to be like the satirical story of like the wild card round matchup between the Eagles and the Bears.
Yeah,
we got to plan.
True, that'll come back around.
That'll be a big deal. He just had his first special teams tackle this week. You know? So
man, yeah. But I mean, Camus better hope that he doesn't make any glaring errors because people are going to be all over that. Yeah, some Eagles fans weren't very happy that he was doing that either because like, why is he the one doing that?
I mean, it's a superstitious bunch. I don't blame him. We have seen guys talk.
It's really not that big of a deal in reality, but
we've seen guys talk trash and get their comeuppance, and you know, I think, look, if they lose this game, it's not because Camus was talking trash. It's because they're not the better team.
Yeah. And Cowboys fans might let them know about it, but
and you and I are probably of a similar opinion. This Cowboys team is more talented right now, I think, than the Eagles. Or at least they're playing much better football. That said, though, a lot of people get offended when Eagles fans and Eagles writers criticize Dak Prescott. To me, this is
Or you mean compliment Dak Prescott?
No. There's a side of the fan base that thinks, hey, maybe people are too critical on Dak. He's going to end up burning us for years. There are. I get comments all the time, like, maybe Dak's very good, blah, 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 blah. Cowboys fans also take that very personally. Here's what I think the issue is. Dak can put up some great numbers. He can make some plays where he scrambles for first downs. He's Nick Foles to me. If he's got a perfect setup, he can play very well. If he doesn't, there's times where his pocket presence is horrific. There are times where he makes really bad decisions with throws. There's times where he's inaccurate. There's times where they have to rely too heavily on the running game. Oh, the defense has to win them games. It happened against the Saints. He did not have a very good game. That's the thing. Like, Dak Prescott is Nick Foles. Nick Foles, to me, is a starter in the NFL, as much as I get criticized for that. He also led a team to the Super Bowl, but he had very ideal circumstances around him. Dak Prescott is a guy that needs ideal circumstances, and right now he has those, and that's why they're playing very well. Don't overthink it. Don't overlook him, but that's what the situation is. He has one of the top 3 running backs of his generation in the backfield right now, who is able to carry the load for him and make him look good and take attention away from receivers. They just traded for Amari Cooper, who has played out of his mind. The offensive line's playing a little bit better, even though they're banged up. I just think the criticisms and the praise of Dak, there's truth in both. That's my shtick.
Yeah. We can transition that into talking about some matchups then.
Let's do it.
Let's do Amari Cooper first.
Okay, so Sidney Jones, I think, will get the call for most of the game. They're going to move Cooper around, but I think Sidney Jones matches up relatively well just because he's long and athletic. I don't know if you want to really play off against him just because he is very quick. He's got quick feet. Jones is going to have to be able to tackle him too, and that's been a concern for me. He had a nice wrap-up tackle against Peterson this past week, but he also had a really bad miss on that 90-yard touchdown run.
He did. He's not a great tackler.
Sidney's going to have to tackle well. That's where I think they missed Ronald Darby. For all his faults sometimes, Ronald was really good about not allowing yardage after the catch. Same thing with Jalen Mills.
They would give up the yards, but then they would tackle them.
Right.
Yeah.
You're okay with that. Like, I think Jim Schwartz brought this up the other day. He said, you don't worry about quarterbacks scrambling as long as they're not moving the chains. I think he has a very similar mindset of you're okay giving up yardage as long as you're not giving up scores and you're not giving up big plays. So, again, I think Sidney Jones will match up with Cooper for most of the game. Rasul Douglas will probably match up against Allen Hurns and Michael Gallup.
Gallup's looked pretty good recently, too.
Yeah, Gallup's really come on. But I think it's a good matchup. Rasul, again, a very physical corner. Showed improved tackling against the Redskins. I think that'll work out. Another thing to watch out for, defense versus offense. I'm looking to see how this front seven can handle Zeke and Dak. You can let Zeke run for yardage. That's the misconception. Barkley had over 200 total yards in both games against the Eagles and lost. You just can't allow Dak and Zeke to beat you. If they tackle well like they did earlier in the season and force Dak to become one-dimensional, the Cowboys will have a lot of problems. What's good about Dak and Zeke is the threat in the RPO game of, oh my God, Zeke can run at me, Dak can run at me. You don't know what to do, and I think this front seven has a massive challenge. Camus talking a lot. Camus' comments are going to come back to bite him if this front seven can't handle those two. Because it opens up things for the wide receivers, and when things aren't opened up for those wide receivers, even Amari Cooper, they're not going to create on their own.
That all goes back to the defensive line, because they played really well this last week. The last couple weeks before that, they hadn't, and I think that was a large part of why guys like Barkley and these other running backs, because they weren't getting separation on them. Like, they clearly didn't on that Peterson play. There was like a wide open gap. But like Michael Bennett, even if he's not fully healthy, they need him to be doing his thing. They need Fletcher Cox to be dominant. They might not have Timmy Jernigan. The other guys have been unimpressive. Brandon Graham's played pretty well recently. If he keeps that up, they should be okay. But yeah, they need to get pressure on Dak and need to get off their blocks to create some space for the linebackers to tackle the running back.
And you need to hit him. Like, not just sacks, you need to hit Dak Prescott. Because when he gets hit, he throws interceptions. That's really what he does. He gets skittish. Look, I watched that Saints game. I didn't think Dak looked good at all. He had his moments, but like overall, they were in his face. Cameron Jordan caused a lot of pressure. If Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham can cause that type of pressure, if Chris Long doesn't necessarily need to sack him, but if he can get to him, I think the Eagles will be in pretty decent shape. Now, flipping over to the other side of the ball, I hope you guys have your fork and knives ready because Zach Ertz is going to eat. He is going to eat a lot in this game.
I mean, he did. That last one, he had 14 catches, I think.
I assume they're going to put Jeff Heath on him, probably because they know they can't stop him either way. So you might as well have Jalen Smith and Leighton Vander Esch kind of move around against the running backs, maybe against Dallas Goedert. You don't want to, no one stops Zach Ertz. It's just not a thing. And I think he's going to have a very good game. The corners move around a lot, so I'm not really sure who's going to match up against Jeffrey, who's going to match up against Golden Tate. Byron Jones is a guy that I think matches up well against all three.
They could really use a big Jeffrey game. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's time. I mean, he
makes a big play every game.
Yeah, he had 3 catches against the Redskins. The 2 other throws that were targeted his way, one was an interception, which was a terrible throw and read by Carson Wentz. Another one was like a bad overthrow. He said that he feels like he has the best hands in the league. Well, he's got to make use of them against the Cowboys. This is a game where you step up as a number 1 wide receiver. We've talked about it several times. When the good players are doing like good work, you're expecting that. But when they can take it to a next level and other guys step up, boom.
Like Alshon did in the playoffs last year.
Right.
I mean, his numbers during the regular season weren't very good. He was dominant in the playoffs.
He was the best.
And he was playing with a torn shoulder. That touchdown he had against the Vikings and the one he had in the Super Bowl were just amazing.
The one that he had in the Super Bowl is one of the best
things
I've ever seen. So, again...
So he's capable of this thing. We just haven't seen that from him since like the early weeks he came back.
And I don't mean to poke the bear or anything, but it does kind of seem like Carson and him fall in and out of a groove very consistently. Like, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's that Carson definitely trusts him. There's no doubt about that. But, like, I don't know if Carson wants to make the difficult throw every time because that's what Jeffrey's good at. Jeffrey's good at making difficult
that's
catches.
a good point. And Wentz hasn't attempted that many of those this year.
Right. Well,
relative to last year.
I mean, he's 69.7% completion percentage. So clearly,
and half of them are to Zach Ertz. So
right. Yeah, it helps when he's catching 80. I think it was 83.6%.
Oh, it's nuts. Yeah. I mean, the I think he was 14 of 15 against the Cowboys.
Yeah, it's insane. But this is a game where you don't want to just target Zach Ertz. Golden Tate could be huge in this game. This is why you traded for him. That Washington game and this game are why you traded for him.
The Washington game was like the nice appetizer if he can have his breakout game this week.
Yeah, if he can kill it. I mean, he was incredible against them when he was at the Lions earlier this season.
I mean, like Jason Garrett pointed out, this is the 3rd time they will have faced him this year.
Right. He's getting the trifecta. I mean, this is... And if they win the division, maybe they play Dallas again a 4th time, an unprecedented 4th time, because they might get the 6th seed. That's math or something. I don't know. Anyway, a lot of things can happen. But, again, the Cowboys Stadium is not a home field advantage, no matter how much they want to build it up.
It's too big.
There are going to be a lot of Eagles fans that travel. Golden Tate wants to be that guy that really has fun and does all this stuff. He did some incredible things in that game yesterday, and I think we understated it in the post-game podcast, but rewatching the game, his ability to maneuver and improvise are incredible. Carson with that 19-yard throw, which with the touch, maybe the best throw Carson's made in 4 or 5 games, just leading him downfield.
Yeah,
he knew
exactly
beautiful. What to
when
do.
He told him go.
Yeah, and Mike Rowe said, that's just 2 great football players making a great play. Yeah, no freaking kidding. And then the touchdown on that drive, again, Golden Tate has a really good awareness about him. And the problem that I found in the earlier games is they were forcing him into screens and, like, premeditated plays, like manufactured
Like he wasn't going anywhere with them, yeah.
Right. Let the guy run a effing route.
Give it to him in space and let him go and do something with it. Yeah.
Right, and now it seems like they've found that. And honestly, that throw to him in the end zone, wow. Like that. I mean, like that's what you want to see from Carson. And so I think they're starting to find their rhythm. They carved a turkey together. I think that's almost the same as like making a blood pact. And so
I mean, they had a pretty sharp electric knife going on.
Yeah, it's true. We don't know what happened. We're not going to jump to conclusions. We're journalists. But they seem to have found a rhythm. Here's the real thing. Here's where this game, our boy,
Joshua,
Josh Adams and Corey Clement are the biggest things that are going to happen for this offense. If they can set up a running game, which they didn't against the Cowboys.
And Darren Sproles.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, he's a factor now.
Yeah, he is. Oh, go figure. We were wrong. We'll just say
we
that.
can say it. We were
wrong.
I mean, everybody was saying
that
it.
14-yard run between him and Jason Kelsey.
He looked like the Sproles of old on that.
Yeah,
Kelsey is the reason why it happened, but then he finished it off.
Yeah, he did.
He's 5 foot. He's like 4'11", and he's breaking through dudes. Like, he amazes me, man.
I think my favorite picture so far this season is him like rolling in the end zone, and you like see him like freeze frame in the air.
Well, I think my favorite moment of the year is him and Lane Johnson's dance, which I didn't see until the day after.
Oh, the David
and Goliath thing. Yeah. The way Lane Johnson sold that, like I watched it 30 times in a row.
He's going to be a pro wrestler after his career.
That was amazing.
It was the best. He took a bump.
That was my favorite celebration dance of the year, I think.
I'm just glad he didn't get injured on that.
Yeah.
I mean, how bad would that have been? But anyway, yeah, I mean, this three-headed running back crew, Sands, Wendell Smallwood, on paper looks really good. What they did against the Redskins was impressive. Jason Kelsey looks fully healthy for once. Lane Johnson, Jason Peters, despite the roll-up, both look pretty healthy. They had 2 good games. I think Brandon Brooks is the best right guard in football,
I don't think they allowed a sack last week as a group.
Isaac Sayamalo had to leave the game because he lost his shoe or something. Whatever, they didn't skip a beat. The 5 of them have developed this chemistry, and that's been a really big key to the turnaround. Josh Adams, ability to see things on a one-cut. This dude's going to be their starting running back next year. I'm going to go out and say it.
He's not really going out on a limb.
If he has this game and he balls like he does, this could be a huge moment for him. And I think Corey Clement's the perfect complement to him. You've said it to me before. Why didn't they just do this earlier?
Yeah.
It's just, a very astute point.
I don't know if they knew what they had in Adams, honestly. I think they knew what they had, but they didn't know what they had.
He got some sniffs while he was on the... Yeah, I'll give you some inside info. He did get some sniffs while he was on the practice squad. He was, this is a guy that they could have lost.
I know. Feel like people need to appreciate that a little more. Like, the Eagles decided that Wendell Smallwood was worth keeping over this guy.
I mean, it's one of those things. Now, Wendell played relatively well.
Relative to what our expectations are for him.
But, you've got Josh Adams playing like he's Jay Ajayi.
Well, that's my point. I'm saying Wendell Smallwood, nobody would have picked up Wendell Smallwood if they cut him.
Probably not.
And, I mean, nobody picked up Josh Adams, but, I mean, I don't want to say he saved their season, but they wouldn't be in position to win the division without him.
Yeah, I mean, he's been the story of the second half of the season. I think Avonte Maddox was the story of the first half of the season. He's now the story of the second half. And if he can really find a groove, he seems to be really well in rhythm. He's taking it really well. They also have Corey Clement, who looks like he's healthy. We've got to keep stressing that because that calf injury made him look lethargic.
I mean, he looks like the pass. So he had those 100-yard receiving yards in the Super Bowl, which he'd never been a pass catching back before. And all offseason, during training camp, I saw him lining up splitting out wide. They clearly were trying to emphasize that. Then the season started, and he wasn't even a factor in the passing game for a while. So maybe he was still getting used to being a pass catcher. I don't know, or people were expecting it. But the last couple of weeks, he's had like 4 catches each week or something like that, or 3 for like a decent amount of yards. He's getting chunk yardage. He had that long run a couple weeks ago. I mean, if he can be their pass-catching guy, they have 2/3 of a 3-headed backfield, and they can add another piece this offseason, whether that's bringing a Jay Ajayi back on a short deal or drafting someone or signing another guy.
I would want to draft somebody.
Yeah, I would too. I'm just saying, but they can go on these. They have 2 of the heads there now.
But what's crazy about them, both of them are undrafted.
Exactly. Yeah. So maybe
do we need a first-round running back?
Exactly. Yeah.
But again, Sproles. Here's what I like about Sproles. Sproles and Clement out of the backfield. You can set up plays and trickery to get DeMarcus Lawrence up into the backfield, and then toss some screens to him. I mean, I think that's what you want to do if you're Mike Groh. Again, I think this team is in a good position. They found a good rhythm. I think the Cowboys are better, but I think they're very beatable. And you need to, as Brandon Graham said, you need to stay in Dak Prescott's face. You need to set the edge. Elliott can have his runs here and there. You just can't let him kill you in the red. You just have to play really good red zone defense. For the offense, you need to catch fire early because the Cowboys really don't put up a ton of points in big games. They've won games dirty. And what I mean dirty is, I mean, like, they've been close ones. And so I think if the reason why they beat the Redskins, I truly believe, is because they got off to a hot start. They had that first drive. Yeah, they got down by 3 points, but it gave them confidence to come back, and they were able to do that. I think when you look at how both of these teams are built, it's going to come down to the fourth quarter. It's going to come down to who can out-scheme who. We know who the better coach is on the sideline. We also know who the better clapper is, so I don't know if that matters. And when I say the better coach, we know it's Jim Schwartz. Jim Schwartz is the better coach.
Fans agree.
Yeah, I'll get some hate emails. I think Jim Schwartz is a better D coordinator than Rod Marinelli. I think that Doug Peterson's a better head coach and play caller than Jason Garrett.
I would like to see Doug. He's gotten back into, like, you know, being a little more ballsy with his play calls and stuff. Mm-hmm. I'd like to see him get a little more creative, like he did last year. I mean, they've been moving Golden Tate around. They moved Nelson Aguilar around a lot. But I don't know, maybe not a Philly special, but it'd be cool if they came out even early. You know, do something weird.
Well, and you talk about getting weird, and I'm all about that. The three entities that can help you get weird. It's not orange juice, vodka, and a cherry. It's Darren Sproles, Jason Kelce, and Golden Tate. Those are three movable objects that you can really, you know. I asked Mike Rowe about this earlier this week, and I said, "How does the athleticism of Mike or of Jason,
yourself?"
Yeah, I mean, if you've seen my 40 time, which you can find on the internet, you know I'm not that athletic. Jason Kelce bring to the table, and he's an incredible athlete for the position. Like, everybody says that it's fun to run behind him because he is so athletic and because he has that strength of his game. And I think when you have somebody like a combination of him and Sproles getting out in space, or him and Clement getting out in space, that's a big deal. With Golden Tate, you can move him around the lineup. Let him do what he needs to do. Stop trying to manufacture yardage by screens or trying to get him involved early with short catches. That's not how he works. Just because you're a yards after the catch guy doesn't mean that you're going to catch a ball 3 yards in front of you and then take it to the house. Let him get some space. That's my advice for this game. That's how you plan creatively. I think Mike Rowe has found his groove as a schemer a little bit. If you watch this Redskins game, it was a brilliantly called game by him and Peterson. Same with Schwartz, really. I think you got to feel good going into this game, even though we'll get to that part later in the show, but I'm not feeling good about this one.
Well, we're going to do predictions now, so get into it now.
Okay. All right, so right now I have it a really close game. I think the Cowboys win this one, but I do think the Eagles are built to upset the Rams. I think they're built to upset the Texans, and I do think they're built to upset not upset the Redskins, but beat the Redskins. I still have the playoffs in focus, but I just don't feel that great about this game. I feel good. I don't feel great.
So what you got the score?
I don't remember. I think I had it something like 26-24 or 23-21, something like that.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. There's a part of me that thinks the Eagles are going to come out ready to go in this one. My main holdup is they still haven't beaten anybody that I label as good this season. The Redskins are not who they were a few weeks ago. The Giants certainly are not a good football team, although they won again this last week. But yeah. So it's still more of like, I'll believe it when I see it sort of thing. And if they win this week, then maybe you might find me picking an upset the week after that. Right now, I don't have them making the playoffs. I do have them finishing 8-8, I believe. I think I had a similar score to you. The Cowboys 24, Eagles 20. Yeah, 20. Eagles 20.
What I will say is there is this feeling of that 2013 Chip's first year, where the Eagles had to beat the Cowboys to get in the playoffs or win the division. There is a little bit of that feeling where, they did come out and beat up a bad Bears team, and now they've got to kind of come out there and really prove themselves. Brandon Boykin had that famous interception where Chip's hugging him and in the picture. These Cowboys games are never what you expect them to be, and so maybe it's a good thing that we don't have a good feel for it. I'll never forget ever the blowout in 2008 when it really came down to Week 17 and the Eagles just blew the roof off of them. Both those games, I believe, happened in Dallas. So, hey, Dallas actually might be a better home field advantage for the Eagles, and Philly might not. I mean, the length might not be as good of a home field advantage.
I mean, based on the way things have been this season, which has been weird.
Right. Well, but they've won their first 2 games. They've had their first 2-game winning streak. Maybe they can turn it into 3. There was a Dallas writer who quote tweeted me who said that Doug Peterson's really good at taking 2-game winning streaks and turning them into 3-game winning streaks. I'd have to look that up. I was lazy, and it was like 3 in the morning on Monday. But yeah, I mean, I think you have to feel okay about this game, and okay is fine.
Hey, this season can turn quick enough that, like, if the Eagles somehow finish 3-1 or 4-0 at best, like, all of a sudden you're thinking, could they go on a run in the playoffs?
Is it these guys? I mean, so to that point, Brandon Graham said this yesterday, but he said that he really likes having that pressure because it makes you strain more. Basically, it makes you push harder. You know what's in front of you. Your season's one game at a time. You know you have to win that one game. And he said that a lot, we forget that a majority of this team went on that Super Bowl run. Like, they know what big games are like. You could talk about the DeAndre Halls and whoever, but, like, the majority of the makeup of this team is a Super Bowl winner. And a guy like Camus, who's talking trash, knows what it's like to be in that premium spotlight. Maybe he plays up to his competition in this one. Maybe they saw something on tape that they know they like. Maybe they felt like they were just like an inch away from correcting stuff, and that's a win, because that seems to be the way they talk about almost every loss. Not that that's the correct way of looking at things, but, maybe they're feeling pretty confident. Maybe they're feeling pretty loose.
Yeah. Camus was feeling loose enough to say the things that he said. So
I mean, he said it so nonchalant.
I know,
too.
that was the thing. Did he know he was on camera? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it was almost like it was an off-the-record conversation. Not that I'm saying that they shot it off the record,
but the way he said it, it was like, he was like in passing, they always joke.
Yeah, like, he's like one of those kids from a Christmas movie.
Well, he's not even the guy like you would think of when you're thinking of guys who are going to talk smack like that.
I mean, and Camus like such like a down-to-earth, just chill dude. It's just like such a weird... It just seemed really out of character, but... Maybe they, like I said, maybe they feel really good about this matchup. Maybe. What's the deal with saturated milk?
All right, Jerry. Let's wrap it up there. What's the deal with airplane food? But yeah.
I am wondering what is the deal with airplane food. I travel a lot, and I don't know.
What is the deal with it? You're right. But so we'll be out in Arlington, I guess, not technically Dallas.
Arlington. That's been like really tough when you write those leads. But anyway,
yeah. But yeah, so. Thanks for listening, guys. We'll do our typical post-game pod.
From Jerry's World.
I'm not a fan of that place, I'm going to be honest. I covered the draft there. I just didn't like it. But it's good press box food. Nobody cares about that besides us.
So if they win, do we start calling it Camus World?
You can do that.
Okay.
All right, we'll end on that note. We're on all the podcast apps, as I always tell you. Leave us a comment on YouTube. Write us a review on Apple. Follow us on Twitter. Thanks for listening, guys. This episode of the No Huddle Show was brought to you by Chevrolet Cadillac of Turnersville, a Penske automotive dealer. Visit today at the Route 42 location in Turnersville, New Jersey, or online at ChevroletofTurnersville.com and CadillacofTurnersville.com.